This is the Friends of Recovery, dedicated to others, setting hearts free. We lift each other, we're living proof. The light is stronger when we know the truth.
All right, and welcome back to the Friends of Recovery Dedicated to Others podcast. This week, we have a very special guest. Joe and I are joined by the executive director of Fordu here in Oneonta and Fordu at all three of its locations, Debra Berrios. Debra, welcome.
Thank you.
And Debra has been, how long have you been the executive director here?
I've been the executive director here since 2018.
And what first kind of brought you into the organization as a whole, or how you became first familiar with Fordu?
Well, that's an interesting story. Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah.
In 2014, I was sick and suffering. I was a daily blackout drunk. I was very confused and I didn't know where to turn. So I saw this purple building on 22 Elm Street. Didn't know much about it, but someone pointed me in this direction and said, you know, they have meetings there. You might want to go there. So it was actually in February that I got exposed to 22 Elm Street. I can't tell you who was at the front desk. What I will tell you is I was greeted with a smile. I was told the meeting is in the next room and help myself. I was shaking. I was concerned if I wasn't going to fit in, if I was going to get the help I needed. I was severely detoxing from alcohol, and I did not know if I wanted to give up drinking and this glorious life of misery that I had.
Yeah.
So I walked into a meeting. I can't tell you who was in the meeting, but I will tell you, people kept telling me to come back. And I did. So that was in February 2014. And I was bebopping in and out of the rooms for a little while because I kept taking my will back. And I wanted to have the freedom to drink every day. Many things were going wrong in my life, including my health, which was probably the most concerning when I looked in the mirror, that I was detoxing and very, very unhealthy. But I stuck it out. People were greeting me every time I walked through these doors. And lo and behold, after a while, I realized that this building was full of hope. And it was going to give me the inspiration, maybe not to drink for that day. So June 3rd, after 4 months of being exposed to this meeting in this room at 22 Elm Street, I wound up staying. And June 3rd was my last drunk. And June 4th, it was a noon meeting here at 22 Elm. And I was chased down the road by somebody who was already in the program of AA and said, whatever you're doing, sweetie, is not working. I will help you and guide you along the way.
Aww.
And then I started coming to meetings almost every day here. Days added up to weeks. The weeks added up to months. And I started slowly seeing my life get back on track. So Fordu, Friends of Recovery, now known as Dedicated to Others, has a very soft spot in my heart. Because I got sober from the kindness of the people that were working here and from the people we're sharing in this building. So Fordu is not only a place where I work now, it was a place that gave me hope and helped me on my journey.
That's great. So I think that's really kind of one of the important things. I mean, for myself as well, this is one of the places I first got sober, and now working here as well. It's, you know, having that personal attachment to the rooms here is, I think, really powerful and really kind of helps drive a lot of us to make sure that we're reaching out that hand, right? To make sure that we're bringing up that next person that just needs a little boost.
Absolutely. One of the things I always talk to staff about is inviting people in with a smile, making them feel welcome. It really doesn't matter where their path is at the moment, whether they don't know if they want to stop drinking or using substances, or they do. They came to us for a reason. We plant those seeds. So whether or not they want to commit to a life of sobriety, we're going to give them that kindness and unconditional positive regard that maybe when we plant that seed of hope, they'll come back another day, just like I did.
Beautiful. Now, tell me a little bit about Joe, and you have worked here for a little while. how did you two meet, and how did the initial employment get kind of established between you two?
Well, Joe and I have something in common. Our start date is the same day.
Really?
We started together in this organization. So I started coming around. Well, let me backtrack a minute.
Yeah.
So I was sober for a couple of years, and I enmeshed myself in the recovery community. I wound up being around people that were sober and like-minded because I knew the people in my past were just trouble.
Hmm.
So I was friendly with many people who were in sobriety. And someone came up to me and said, they have a position open that we think you should apply for. So I took a gamble. I've been in the recovery field. That is something that I am proud of, that while I was working, I was functional, but when I wasn't, I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I came to an interview in front of probably 12 board members. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I felt like I had a big spotlight on me, and it took hours. They kept asking me all sorts of important questions that would be asked of somebody that was going to become a director. And at the very end of the interview, the most important thing I remember or took away from that is one of the board members said to me, "What is your definition of recovery?" Now, legally, when we're interviewing people, we can't ask them what their status is or how long they're sober, but to ask someone what their definition of recovery was pretty creative.
Yeah.
So my answer, doing the next right thing. It encompasses everything. Well, for then 4 weeks, they strung me along, and I was taken out to lunch by somebody on the board, and they said, "We're going to give you a shot at being the executive director here." Well, I literally cried in my soup because I realized my life has become full circle, because I came through these doors as a drunk, desperate and detoxing, looking for help, and to turn it around and be a part of a team and to lead the team, knowing where I was years and years ago, was a spiritual moment for me that I will never forget. So fast forward, when I met Joey, I was in training, 4 months of training. The same board member said, "We know a guy." And I said, "You know a guy?" "Yeah, we know a guy that does great workshops on alternatives to violence, helping people decide to make good choices instead of leading a dangerous life that can lead to incarceration." His name was Joe, and they called him Big Joe back then. And Big Joe came on board the same time I did, because a board member said, "Even though you're just new, this is a hiring decision that we want to help you make, because Big Joe is going to bring a lot to the community, and everyone knows and respects his recovery." So he came the very first day in July. We started together, and Joey started providing workshops and opportunities, and he's a magnet. When Big Joe is around, people are attracted to him. So I'm proud to say we have the same anniversary date in July.
That's really cool. I really like that in general. I share a start date with another individual at one of the other centers, and it's really cool to see kind of how each of us is developing as time goes on and checking in and stuff like that. So I really dig that you guys have that connection as well. So, and this question's for both of you, Joe and Debra. So since you guys have started here, what are some of the bigger changes that you've seen either in the community, the atmosphere, or specifically in programming that have really positively changed either the outcomes for individuals or just the overall vibe?
Well, I think it's the growth, meeting the people every day, seeing where they're at and what they need. We've really evolved into being able to provide many more services and to cut to the chase. we've obviously, our relationships have grown with the hospital, with mental health, with the jail, with the community in general. And through the networking we've done with that, we're better equipped to help people get housing, to not just to go to recovery centers. Like we have people we call in the recovery centers.
Yeah.
So if someone needs to go to a rehab, we're not just sending them someplace, some cold place where we don't know. We know the people there, and we'll call somebody that we know and talk to them and it'll be a warm handoff, and then a warm handoff to come back. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. People have a safe place to go to.
Well, it's got to be a comfort too, someone that's potentially looking at going to treatment. And, if they've never been to treatment before, never been to that particular facility, there's all sorts of questions. What the food like? What is the place like? Where am I going to be sleeping? What are the people? Who are the clinicians? And what's the ratio of patients to clinicians? And having that information and having been there in person, either to check it out or know the intake people, like it really provides a pretty steady comfort to just have a little bit more solid information instead of guessing and looking at a brochure before going into someplace for a month to 3 months or more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deborah, same question. What's some of the things that you've seen change since you've started here that have really shown a really significant impact, or just something that you look on fondly as something that's either you have implemented or have seen implemented?
So in 2018, there was 10 staff. In 2025, there's 25 staff. In 2018, we had a satellite office in Delaware County in Delhi. It was the first floor of a women's shelter. Now we have a fully operational center in Delhi, equipped with the same staff and the services that we have here in Oneonta.
Mhm.
We were the first Narcan vending machine ever established in New York State,
Really?
thanks to Kyle Lefevre, our assistant director, who did research. That vending machine is a godsend. It produces hope 24/7. 1,200 kids a year go out of that Narcan vending machine. So it was an easy access for people who are struggling with addiction to get Narcan so that they don't overdose and not wake up.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that we have a very unique staffing structure. 75% of my staff are in recovery. So not only do they work here, they meet people who walk through the doors and can say they've been there and done that. So we're relatable. We support them because we just got here before they did. So I think that's very unique. When I interview people for positions and they tell me they're in recovery and what their lives look like now, they are an asset. They are someone that's valuable to anyone that walks through the door, and their commitment to the organization is amazing. We also have another center in Norwich, which we did not have, but only 2 years ago. We wrote a federal grant. We had private funding, put lights on. We had a staff of 1 for a while, and now we have a staff of many. So we grew from 1 location and a satellite office in all these years to 3 well-staffed recovery centers. We also extended in our youth clubhouse. We have an upstairs and a downstairs of our youth clubhouse on Main Street. So that has been expanded. We've gotten numerous of grants and support from local foundations from all the hard work that the staff do in each and every day. I pride ourselves on being there at all points of someone's recovery, and we make them feel welcome. So the growth, there's so much growth that happened in such a short period of time. And I thank the staff, their hard work, the dedicated board of directors who are always there to support us, and they acknowledge the hard work that we do. It's a fabulous organization.
Mm-hmm.
And all we do is provide hope.
That's right. And just real quick, because I don't think we talked about it in the first episode, but the youth clubhouse that we have on Main Street, Club Odyssey, is an 18 to 25 club, great alternative for anyone in the college community or in that age bracket that's looking for kind of an alternative to a lot of the rest of the facilities and businesses that are offered for that particular age range, where they can go, they can play games. There's concerts. There's there's like a small movie theater almost in it as well, with like movie theater seating. And it's a really pretty interesting and very unique spot that, from my understanding, gets quite a few people through the door.
Tim, that spot is amazing. To offer the college kids an alternative. School's stressful.
Mm-hmm.
All week being there, tests, so much going on. They're away from home. And when they come to town, 99% of the activities involve a bar or drinking.
Correct. Yeah.
So the kids that want to just unwind and relax and play some games or maybe just sit in a corner and have some fun.
Yeah.
Watch other people have fun. And for it to be that safe place where there's no drugs, no alcohol. And I mean, it's just been amazing how it's expanded, and they love it. I
Yeah.
mean, they do karaoke. They have a karaoke night. They have an outside movie night. I mean, they just come up with great things there to do, and it's a fun place.
And the location of it too is, I think, very incredible. It's really kind of in the heart of downtown, surrounded in literally every direction with bars. So it's really kind of a respite in itself of just being able to, I don't know, find a little bit of a safe haven, kind of in the midst of what really can be a lot of chaos. I think this past weekend as well, they do a lot of trips, and they got to meet James Hetfield from Metallica.
Yeah, Metallica.
Before a concert, which is just, I mean, talking about doing cool stuff in an alternative environment. I mean, that's a pretty awesome one. Now, Debra, you had a little bit of clinical background, right, before coming into this position in the recovery field. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So now I feel like I'm dating myself. In 1991, I started working at a long-term drug rehab in Delaware County. And back then, the credentialing was not what it is today. And I came to work with a bachelor's degree. And I was a junior counselor, then a senior counselor in the same rehab, which was an 18 to 24 month inpatient program. And then I was able to acquire my CASAC in 1997, was working really hard at trying to maintain my credentialing. Back then, it was difficult at times to go to school and work, but I did it. And then I was inpatient for the longest. But one of the things I will tell you that is the biggest difference now for me is when I worked inpatient, it was mandatory for most people to be there. So you didn't have people voluntarily wanting to change their lives. Maybe 5% of the population came in because they were mandated by their wife or their husband
Right.
or their boss. But most of them came in because they did not want to serve out a sentence. And this was one way that they can alleviate being behind bars. So I did that for 21 years. It was an OASIS certified provider. And when I left that facility, I said to myself, I never wanted to work for OASIS again because the constraints, restrictions, the pressure of being in a certified provider setting was very difficult.
Yeah.
Because when OASIS would come, you thought they were like the IRS. You were not welcoming them because they were going to look at your clinical charts. They were going to make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's. And then when I left after 21 years, I did some private work for a while, and I loved that. And I maintained my credentialing as I was functional back then, mind you.
Right.
When I got exposed to the recovery movement, being in recovery was just amazing to me, and how important and supportive OASIS was to us for just being a funded provider versus being a certified provider. So now when OASIS comes, we roll out the red carpet, we get them Dunkin' Donuts, we welcome them with open arms because all they want to do is help us be better. Because we're not certified, so we don't diagnose or treat, and we don't have the constraints that are needed for clinical documentation and then when you diagnose and treat at an inpatient level. This is a non-sterile, non-clinical environment where recovery really happens. And so I realized once I came on board here that this was the kinder, softer way.
That's very true. And Joe, very like to that. You've also worked on the more clinical side in the city, right? So you've kind of had that experience of working on both ends of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Well, yeah, in the city, in the emergency room in the hospital, fortunately, a lot of places have peers in the emergency room now. So although I was still a peer and I had the leeway of a peer, the paperwork, the credentialings, it's a federal credential instead of a state credential. So it was a little more complicated, and there was a lot more paperwork. But at the end of the day, we did get to really help people. And that's what it was all about. And my experience here just made it so much easier to transition down there. I know the work, I think Debra touched on it. The work is in our heart. We're in recovery. So, I mean, there's no greater experience than you see somebody you worked with and you go to the store and they're checking you out, or you go to the park and they're playing with their kids.
Yeah.
You know, you see stuff like that, and that's why we do it.
Now, on an organizational level, Deborah, I know that we either work kind of in the same field as a lot of other organizations. Is there a general train of thought on what kind of differentiates Fordue from some of the other organizations that help a lot of people in the recovery community, and how we approach community as a whole?
Well, I think I already touched on this, that we're not a clinical setting
Yeah.
and we're not sterile. I will also add that Fordue is one of the longest standing ever established recovery centers in New York State. Let me go back a little bit.
Yeah.
In 2000, a group of drunks needed to have a place to run support groups. So they approached St. James Episcopal Church, and they saw this building was not occupied. And they said, can we open the doors, clear the cobwebs, stain the floors, paint the walls, and have meetings in here? The church said, if you keep up the building, it's yours. And that's how Fordue came to what it is today. A bunch of drunks wanted to have a safe place to meet. And that's how we started, as a clubhouse. And we grew. In 2004, we became incorporated and became a 501c3 so that we can receive donations and grants and other opportunities. And from there, in 2010, the Office of Addiction and Support Services, otherwise known as OASIS, started paying attention to us and realized we were doing a lot of good work. So they decided to offer us state funding. And since then, we've been a staple, a pioneer, that recovery centers that are just starting out look to us as a model. So I'm really proud of our humbling beginnings, the grassroots of having some sober people getting together just to talk, to stay sober and have hope for the day. That's how we started. We are a grassroots organization. And all we do is what we've done back then is open our doors to help people find their way. Of course, with all that said and done, we are an organization set aside from others. We're not clinical. No one pays for services here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is free. So when you come through the doors, we have walk-ins. People are there to help. You don't need to set up an appointment, although we do have a lot of peers that come through our doors that want to work with staff. Recoveries needing to have a peer connected to them, sometimes they need an appointment. But if they walk through those doors, they're never going to be turned away. We also don't turn anybody away if they are continuing to use or drink. We just hope we can engage with them, get them to detox, get them to treatment or to the hospital, and get them the services and make sure that they're safe. So they come through these doors in all stages of their recovery. That also makes us unique because you might not be ready. We'll hold your hand until you are ready. That sets us aside from other modalities because there's no prerequisite to come to us.
Right.
You just need 2 feet.
Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about some of the larger events that Fordue runs throughout the year. There's the Rothenberger Run, the Giving Tree, the Harvest Dinner. What are some of the ones that you really identify with? I know you're very big into the holidays as a whole. If you want to run down some of those larger events throughout the year.
Wow. You have Santa Claus here and Mrs. Claus.
Mhm.
So you must have been good, Tim.
Right.
So the Rothenberger Run is probably the most special thing I can think of. So Dale and Kathy Rothenberger came to us a little over 9 years ago, and their son passed away from this addiction. And they wanted to do something in honor of him, but also they wanted to help a parent never see or experience what they did with their son. So they decided to get involved with our organization to honor the death of their son and to help other parents on their journey in saving their own children's lives. So every year we have an annual run. It's at the park, 1K, 5K, 10K. And it started out small, and now we have hundreds of runners every single year. And every year, Dale and Kathy, who are prominent in this community, will talk about their son and talk about addiction and talk about the services that are offered here, that there is hope and help if they want it.
Mhm.
When they're asked every year of their son's passing, how are they feeling? They say, I'm just feeling a little different, but the pain is still there. So we do this to celebrate what we know and love about our son, and we hope that others find their way. And there's probably not a dry tear. Everybody's crying.
Mhm.
Everybody's hugging. It's a wonderful thing to see. Little children, grandparents, people in recovery, people struggling in recovery. It's almost a full day event. It's wonderful. And we have sponsors every year that step up to the plate. It's becoming a very big annual race in Oneonta, which is held at Neowa Park.
Mhm.
So we hope this year, as we did last year, we continue to grow. And people will come up on stage, talk about their recovery, talk about their lives now and how much better they are. The whole day is full of hope, hugs, and laughter. The Rothenberger Run. Stay tuned for more details.
And that should be in September, right?
First weekend in September.
First weekend of September.
It's Labor Day weekend.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, so that's
Yes.
easy for people to remember at least. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of information about the website and the Facebook
Oh,
as we get
absolutely.
closer to that.
The second event that I always love, and you alluded to the fact that I love the holidays. Yes, I even start Christmas cookies right after Halloween. It's all about Christmas. So we have a Given Tree. When I first started working here, I noticed there was a Given Tree at Hannaford and at Salvation Army. And I said to the staff, we should have one of those trees here for people in recovery. Let's do that here. So we got a little tree, put it in our foyer, and put tags on it, very similar to what Hannaford does in Salvation Army,
Mhm.
but it's for those impacted by addiction who are in recovery. And I could tell you, I won't steal his thunder. We have a very special story that I'll let Joe tell you after I'm done. So we're 8 years in existence with a Given Tree. And what's the most unique thing about our Given Tree is more people want to take a tag off the tree than write a tag on the
Yes.
tree
Yep.
because they want to give back what was so freely given to them. Even if they hardly have any money in their pocket, they'll go to the dollar store, wrap something up, and give it to someone because they feel so fortunate and grateful that they have a second chance.
Mhm.
And local businesses, board members, staff members, we all contribute to the Given Tree. Last year, 74 gifts went out.
Mhm.
So that is something going strong that we will always have. Very early on, right after the harvest dinner. So, but Joey has a very special story one time that is like a Hallmark movie. I would love him to share.
All right. Well, as you know, I'm Santa Claus. So every year it's a big to do, and we have a lot of people. And we had a older gentleman, grandpa, and his children were thrusted into his care, his grandchildren. And both of the children's parents were in recovery. So he didn't know what to do for Christmas. It was a kind of just thrown at him.
Yeah.
And he was doing the best he could, and he seen our flyer for the Given Tree, so he came here. And the kids were here, and he was here, and he kind of didn't know what to expect. And I kept watching everyone's interaction with the little girl, and I realized she was deaf. So I asked her in sign language if she understood sign language, and she just lit up like a Christmas tree. And she ran over and she said, Grandpa, Santa Claus knows sign language. And just her whole demeanor changed,
Oh my gosh.
and, we gave the kids their gifts, and, everyone was just having a good time. And, you could see her grandfather was just so relieved. He didn't know what to expect, but to just have that help with Christmas and to see the kids having a good time and just him be able to relax. That's why we do it. We see stuff like that. That's why we're here.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't we want to do the job if we can help somebody like that out?
Now, Joe, you also facilitate a ride, right, too, in the late
Yes,
summer?
we did the first one last year, the Freedom Ride. It was fabulous, and we had a blast. And just to see, obviously in the riding community, there's a big problem with alcoholism and addiction.
Yeah.
And, to see all those sober riders getting together and riding for freedom from recovery, it was just a blast. And we definitely anticipate this year for it to be even bigger.
And that ride goes to all 3 Fordu centers, right?
Yep. It starts here in Oneonta, and from here they go to Delhi, and then from Delhi they go to Norwich, and then back here, and we have a little barbecue. We had some live music last year. I mean, just a great time.
Now, the other big event, I know we have a lot of large events in the in the fall and winter. But Deborah, the harvest dinner is normally in October, right? Or early
Yes.
November?
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that.
So it's almost like a pre-Thanksgiving
Yeah.
feast. And we work very closely with the Safe Haven for You, formerly known as the Lord's Table, because you just can't put 2 or 3 big birds and a couple of hams in our oven here.
No.
Doesn't work. And we have a lot of staff that bring hams home, but we still need a big oven. So we approached the Lord's Table back then and asked if we could possibly use their space to have a harvest dinner. And they said, absolutely. So it grew and grew, and we get most of our donations. In fact, all our turkeys have come from Hannaford. They have been so gracious to us and given us the biggest birds they can find, and they offer us canned foods and all other fixins for our feast. And we have about 200 people come for
Oh,
a
wow.
meal, and we have music at times, arts and crafts, decorated, and we have a great time. So that's right before Thanksgiving. So it's our pre-Thanksgiving feast, just as good as Thanksgiving, which, by the way, we do here as well.
Mhm.
But it's a very large event where we have so many activities for people. And what's great about that is that it's a nice, healthy blend of the community. You have people that come because they live alone and they don't want to be alone, or senior citizens, or those that don't have permanent housing that want a warm place and sit with others and have a friendly conversation. Then we have the people in the recovery community. So we become one big gathering in the end of October, and we call it the Harvest Dinner. So we look forward to that every year. And let me tell you, the staff are so hardworking. I think most of the staff here come in between 7 or 8 in the morning. I'm already dressing some of the birds. You see some of the birds being delivered next door. Then we put the birds in this oven. Then we have another gentleman who works with us that always brings back the ham from the night before. And it is a great event. And we look forward to that every year. That's really the beginning of the holiday extravaganza,
Yeah.
because nobody should feel alone and everyone should be happy, healthy, in an environment where they're going to get the support they need. Because holidays are a trigger for many people.
hmm
A lot of people are estranged from their families or far away from their families. So what better place for them to come and be around others? And that's why the holidays are very big for us. In fact, the day after Halloween, you will hear jingle bells in my office, and you will hear the assistant director start whistling Christmas tunes, and we're all about it. Because the happiness that we see on those faces. I mean, when Joey spoke to that little girl who was deaf,
hmm
so many people were touched by that moment and remember that moment. And we put all the presents under the tree, just like if you were a little kid waking up that Christmas morning, can't wait to see what was unwrap your gifts. Joey, or Santa Claus, I should say, gives out the gifts, and we give out candy canes and cookies, and we have a great time. And it's just it's beautiful to be here during the holidays, because we want people to feel welcomed and be around other people so they don't feel lonely and resort to anything that they might regret. Because holidays are tough. Weekends are tough. Nights are tough. That's why we're not a 9-to-5 operation. We have many hours available. And we also pride ourselves on just being funded for a warm line.
hmm
The warm line is a unique opportunity from 5 at night to 2 in the morning that anyone can pick up the phone and talk to a support service, a peer, Talk them off the ledge if they're struggling to stay sober, and just make it one more day. It is not a crisis line or a hotline. It is a warm line where people can get some support, a friendly conversation, and encouragement to stay sober one more day. That is coming up in the next couple of months, and we'll advertise and give more information as it comes. But we're hoping people realize that we're only a phone call away at 1 a.m, when maybe it matters the most.
I think one of the, just to touch on this quick too, with the harvest dinner, I think one of the things that makes that particular event so unique is there are a lot of other activities going on next door during that meal. So I remember seeing on Facebook last year, Kyle was playing live music. There's all sorts of activities for the kids to do. So it's not just showing up, getting a meal and leaving. It's significantly more of a community event where there's a lot going on. There's a lot to do and there's a lot of reasons to go.
Well, what's really unique about it is it's a great event for families, and a lot of families come there. And then you have the people that don't have family, a lot of older people also that just, they don't have much going on. And they're like, oh, this will be a nice hot meal. And then they meet all these other people. When you see everybody sitting around having a great time, all the different music being played, the kids playing over on the side and making stuff, turkeys and painting pictures. It's just in general a good time. It's a great way to kick off the holidays. And like Deborah said, that's a big time where people during the holidays, people are depressed. People tend to turn to things that aren't very healthy because they're lonely, sad. So having a happy place where you're definitely not going to be lonely, some place to go. And I think that's the biggest change, Deborah, Fort-Eau has just become a beacon of light for the community. People need help, or just a safe place.
Well, and on a lot of those other days too, right? St. Patrick's Day, we normally have food all day, additional mutual aid support meetings. Super Bowl, we'll have a sober spot where you can go, because it doesn't necessarily need to be a winter holiday to have kind of a very triggering time of year, time of day. And us having those events during all of those times of the year is, I think, a pretty positive support for the community as a whole. But I think, Deborah, thank you so much for coming by and telling us a little bit about your experience, strength, and hope, as well as Joey going over some of the events. And that I never get tired of hearing that story from the Giving Tree with that girl. That's just exceptional. That type of environment is, number one, available, and number two, that you can have that type of experience here. As the warm line gets live, we'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes. So if you're listening to this and it's not live yet, make sure to check back later. And that number and all the relevant information will be in there, as well as the Fort-Eau website and Facebook is going to have schedules and calendars of all those events throughout the year and more information on the Rothenberger Run, Giving Tree, Harvest Dinner, St. Patrick's Day, Super Bowl, everything that occurs here and at other local places throughout the year. So guys, thank you so much. Deborah, thank you again. Joey as well. And we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.